Oh, but the conversations have been warm and been positive. Just the fact that there is a conversation and communication happening is a positive. So a long way to go, but we are hearing more encouraging words from the two sides that we have in recent weeks, and the RMT will ballot its members again in the coming days and weeks to see whether they want to strike again, because this is the last one scheduled. So too early to say if there'll be another one, but things moving in the right direction.
All right, well, let's see how it all pans out. Back to you a little later. Many thanks indeed to Christian Hugel, live for us at London's Euston Station.
LBC News.
Now, it's reported people are still trapped in rubble at the site of an explosion in Ireland. That has now killed, this is the breaking news from police in Ireland, 9 people. Huge explosion here. We knew it was going to be bad, but the extent of it is starting to now surface. Rescuers have been searching through the night and still looking after the blast in County Donegal. Chris McNulty is a journalist who's been covering the story for Donegal Live and says it's hit the community hard.
Well, Creasla, it's a small village around 20 kilometres from Letterkenny, which is the main town in County Donegal. Creasla is the gateway to West Donegal, tourist areas like Dunfanaghy, Falcarra, Gweedore. Everyone passes through the village of Creasla on the way to these areas. It's a very, very close, tight-knit community. And at the time of the explosion on Friday afternoon, schools had just finished at 3 o'clock. The scene, the complex which the explosion happened, it contains the local shop. It's the only shop in the village, the post office, and also an apartment complex. So it's a very, very well-known complex, and you know the people who frequent it on a daily basis would be all well known in the area. The emergency services came from both sides of the border, from the Republic of Ireland and also from Northern Ireland. But as you say, the local community has really rallied around. I mean, the blast was heard for miles away, and you know, buildings nearby had their windows actually shattered. Such was the ferocity of the blast. There were windows in nearby buildings which literally blew off as well. And yeah, look, members of the local community have just really, I suppose, arrived at the scene to stand in solidarity. And many people, even early this morning, coming here to just sort of stand in silent prayer and I suppose hoping for some good news to emanate from the scene.
We'll follow developments very closely. One other story to tell you about today is a development in Ukraine. A bridge linking mainland Russia with the Crimean Peninsula has collapsed after an explosion. This is a vital route for Moscow to get weapons into Ukraine. Yevgeny Popov is United Russia MP for Moscow, says it was a Ukrainian attack.
It is a bridge between two Russian regions, between Crimea and Krasnodarsky Krai. Of course, it was a terrorist attack from Ukrainian government. It is infrastructure for civilians.
They had said it was caused by a truck explosion earlier. That's the official line from the Russians. Those close to the Ukrainian president say it was a big, firm explosion. At 12:10.
This is LBC News.
Maybe your stamps are on the table next to the birthday card you forgot to send. Or in that random drawer full of pens, pennies and paper clips. Or stuck to your fridge behind a year-old to-do list and a magnet from Malaga. Or maybe, just maybe, they're neatly placed in a completely sensible spot. After the 31st of January 2023, regular stamps without a barcode will no longer be valid. So if you know where your old ones are, use them up or swap them. For more info, visit royalmail.com/barcoded stamps.
We got it at Selco. Selco is where the trade goes.
At Selco Builders Warehouse, we've got real deals on a wide range of trade quality building products. This month, we've got a 2.44 by 1.2 metre sheet of 18mm general purpose plywood for only £32.95 ex VAT. Now that's a real deal. Find even more real deals at Selco Builders Warehouse and online at selcobw.com.
We got it at Selco. Selco, it's where the trade go.
That charged at 20%.
Want more speed for less? Try BT's Superfast Fibre 1. It's faster than our standard fibre and now only $27.99 a month with no upfront costs. Plus, for total peace of mind, it comes with a £20 money-back speed guarantee. At just $27.99 a month, it's worth every penny. Hurry, offer ends 13th of October. 24-month contract, broadband only, new customers, CPI plus 3.9% increase each March, $32.99 per month 25, terms apply.
LBC News. Weather.
Dry and bright for much of the UK. Plenty of autumnal sunshine, cloud and a few showers in the far north and west of Scotland. A high of 18 degrees. And then clear and dry for England and Wales overnight with some starry skies. More overcast with outbreaks of rain in Northern Ireland and Scotland. A low of 7 Celsius. That rain moving east across much of the country on Sunday. Largely dry and bright further south. Blustery showers in the northwest on Monday.
LBC News.
Now, public sector workers will receive pay awards of around 5% this year on average, so says research by the Institute for Fiscal Studies. But this, it says, will mean a 5% real terms pay cut for millions of people. The Institute has also pointed out this is above what was budgeted for in departmental spending plans, which could mean reducing the workforce by over 100,000 people this coming year. Ben Zaranko is a senior research economist at the IFS and told Sandy Waugh how he got to this number.
The public sector pay awards announced so far this year, as you've said, are below the rate of inflation. So they're not keeping pace with prices and not having a real terms pay cut for millions of public sector workers, which will be painful, no doubt. But those pay awards, which have averaged about 5%, are also above what was budgeted for when public services like schools and hospitals and prisons had their spending plans set out last autumn. And so when the government's announced the pay was about 5%, it hasn't provided any additional money to compensate departments for the higher costs. So those costs, which are about £5 billion this year, what they are in future years depends on what pay awards are announced. But if we assume that after this year, because of strike action or whatever else, the government chooses to increase pay in line with inflation, you could be looking at by 2024, if the government doesn't come up with any more money, it could be left with public services having to cut something like $200,000 just to stay within their budget, because there's no extra cash coming. You have to pay all your existing workers more. How do you make the numbers add up? Well, you have to employ fewer workers.
Is this a lack of transparency, do you think, or is it's just the economic reality?
I don't think it's a transparency issue. I think it's a question of, if you're going to set 3 years of spending plans out, as the government did last year, on a set of assumptions, including what's going to happen to inflation, what's going to happen to pay, and then if those assumptions turn out to be wildly wrong, then the question is, do you allow, who picks up the tab and who deals with that? Is it departments having to somehow make savings, make painful cuts to other budgets, or make cuts to headcount? Or does the government say, we recognise that things have changed and we're going to provide additional funding to compensate you? At the moment, the government is saying there is no chance of any further funding coming along the way. They won't use any extra money they've got for tax cuts. And so departments are being asked to deal with this. And that's a political choice that's been made, but it's not one that's going to be painless, and it's not one that's going to be easy.
Yes, it's not your job, I guess, with your research to come up with the answer. It's just your job to point out what the problem is.
Exactly. It's just our job is to point out that there are no free lunches in this world. There is a difficult trade-off to be made. The Chancellor effectively has a choice this autumn and then in the rest of his period as Chancellor, which is, do I try and find the money from somewhere to compensate departments and provide extra funding for public services? That might mean making it harder for me to cut taxes. It might make it more difficult for me to demonstrate fiscal sustainability. It could require tough choices elsewhere. That's one option. The other option is allow the quality of public services to deteriorate, in many cases further deteriorate. It might make it harder to clear the NHS backlog. It might make it harder to clear the backlog in courts, to catch up on lost learning in schools. And so that's a choice. Neither option sounds especially palatable, but that's part of what governing in difficult times entails. And so it's just trying to point that out and make it clear the consequences of whatever choices are made.
At 12:16, let's turn to football now, and the Lionesses' victory against the world champions, the United States, at Wembley, 2-1 last night, 76,000 spectators.